Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jade, and this is How to App on iOS. And today we are hanging out with the amazing, the incomparable, the Multi Instrumentalist, the man of the moment, Night Train, 1988. But first, we are going to kick off with the title track from his debut album. This is From Boy to Man. Good morning. I hope you're all doing well. Good afternoon and good evening. Hey, happy Thanksgiving to those who are living in the United States and Canada and anyone else who wants to celebrate it and have two greedy Christmases at once. I hope you're all doing well. Thank you for joining me today. It is Thanksgiving, so if you're a turkey out there, you're fucked. You're probably being eaten right now, so good luck to your young turkey. Welcome to the show. This is How to App on iOS, where each day I look at apps and stuff and make music and video and all that kind of thing. And each end of the week, we have an artist or a developer or somebody creative on the show where we pick their brain and find out a little bit more about who they are. Now, I came across this artist from the channels here, from I think on Pete John's, from over on Thomas Christ's channel, on my channel, and didn't know too much about this artist for such a long time. And funny enough, we'll talk a little bit more about that as the show goes on, about who you all are and how we find out who you are. And he's got a very interesting artist name as well. So let's find out more about this particular artist. He is, I just want to say before we go on, that album that we heard, that track there from Boy to Man album, that was the title track. I was privileged enough to do the show before his premiere on YouTube. And it was just, if you haven't seen the premiere, really go and watch it. I've put a link in the description. It's a beautiful journey into a human being's life. And as you saw from that clip, the nostalgia is just, if you're an 80s person like me, it hits you in the feels, yeah. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen, please join me with a round of applause or whatever it is you're doing right now. Night Train, 1988. How are you, my friend? How you going?
Hi, Jade. Hi, all.
We're here. We did it. We're online. And we didn't have any problems. You kicked ass. Everything you did was perfect. And here we are. How are you going today on this holiday that you don't celebrate either?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, very well, thank you. And happy Turkey, I think you call it, or Thanksgiving to everybody who celebrates it. Yeah, I spoke to Tom briefly earlier on and wished him a happy Thanksgiving. And I sort of said, yeah, I think the UK really need to celebrate this holiday. More excuses to eat and drink.
Happy Murder Day, happy, whatever you want to call it. Happy Double Christmas Day. I don't get it, man. When I lived in the US, I was just like, why do you have a Christmas the month before? It doesn't make any sense. But hey, whatever floats your boat, that's all good. The first thing I want to hit you up with is I want to know the backstory behind the name Night Train. What is it all about?
I had a feeling you might be asking me this one. To get to this point, I probably have to go through my entire backstory, but I will literally jump to the present and tell you where Night Train came from. So the most recent music that I've got into was synthwave, and the most recent synthwave band that I've got into is a band called The Midnight, and basically a track on the Midnight's album Nocturnal is a track called Tokyo Night Train. When I was looking for a name for my act, as it were, and originally I was going to be a synthwave act. That was my intention, but that's where the Night Train came from. The 1988. Simply, 1988 was the year I got my first keyboard and started creating music, and that's kind of where that came from.
Awesome. Well, I'm always interested by names like that because I know when I had Jude Capana on the show, he calls his musical creations Maze End Music Lab. And there's a reason he does it, and that's because of the job he does, and he doesn't want people to know that he makes music. And more of like I don't know if it's more of an anxiety thing or something that he just doesn't want people to find out. But, so I'm always curious to know if there's a hidden meaning or anything like that. Do you have people like asking who you are, like what your name is? That's another thing. Like I was thinking today, I'm always going, so do I just all the way through the interview go, so Night Train? Because I know your name's Al, so, but yeah, it's always an interesting thing.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, to be honest, everybody who knows me in Night Train, apart from a couple of people I actually know, are people within this community. And I'm always happy with either Night Train or Al. But it's nice that people have gradually sort of known me as Al, but I'm kind of happy with either.
All right, so let's jump in and so before we jump in and do the usual standard questions, I want to pick your brain for that particular video clip, because there is a lot of references to the 80s in there, and I know when I first saw it, it hit me in the feels of, like, I saw an Atari 2600 and just was pining to have one back, because I'm a massive video game head. I have so many emulators. I have thousands of emulated games. I'm such a geek when it comes to that. Are you a big fan of, like, what is it about the 80s that still hits you in the feels?
Oh, blimey. Well, it's a decade I grew up through, and it was all the, apart from obviously recently where I've had lots of happy times, it was all the happiest part of my life. The parts I've shown in there, getting my first NES, and actually prior to that, getting my first Atari, which was actually given to me by my uncle who lives in London, and me and my brother would spend hours playing Space Invaders on the Atari. And then my mum got me. This is all documented in the album, by the way. But my mum got me my first NES, and I remember, like, before I got my first NES, I remember having the I had a Nintendo magazine, and I remember having the walkthrough for Super Mario Brothers 2, and I remember like studying it. I was like, before I was able to get my Super Mario Brothers 2, I wanted to, like, know exactly how I was going to complete the game. And unfortunately, it meant as soon as I got Super Mario Brothers 2, I was able to, like, complete it really, really quickly, far too quickly. But yeah, so I got my first NES, and I just played it a ridiculous amount of time. And obviously, the other parts of that video, the part with the Andy and Ed and Philip and Gordon, I think you're probably only going to get that if you live in the UK, because that was part of the kind of Saturday morning TV side of things.
It's interesting too with video games, how we now live in a world where, like, as I said, I was a big video game head, and I was like the only kid in our neighborhood that had an Atari 2600. So, like, I remember when I first got it, like, everybody at school wanted to come around my house and see it, like it was like I was opening the Ark of Covenant, and people were like, "Wow, Space Invaders!" But back then too, as you said, like, to actually find out cheats and stuff and all that, we had to buy magazines. Like, and now you look at the world we live in, you just do a search on YouTube and there's assholes sitting on there just playing right through entire games. We're in a totally different world now. Absolutely.
When you had your Atari, was there a way to, like, put the cartridge in a certain way where the Space Invaders became a different color and they moved much faster than normal? Yeah. I don't know if that was just ours and that was a fault on our
No,
Atari,
there are a lot of faults with.
I
thought it was the cartridges, because there was a game I used to have on Atari. It was my favorite game, and it actually had a problem with the code. It was called Dodge 'em, and it's kind of like Pac-Man. It's got a grid, and there's two racing cars, and they both start out collecting the dots. And there was a section where, as soon as you got to a certain point, the thing just went and just froze. And it was they didn't have, like, patch updates back then, so they could just update the fucking game. You were stuck with that fucking cartridge forever, And no matter if you took it back and went, "Oh, can we swap it out?" No matter what, you still got the same cartridge. It was still fucked.
You have to kind of make the most of the glitches that made it better for you, and unfortunately put up with the glitches that made it worse.
As your parents would say, it was like, it's just roughage. It's just deal with it, and you did deal with it. You had no choice. All right, let's get into the usual questions that I ask everybody. So, what does music mean to you?
Okay, so I knew you were going to ask this one, so I've given it a bit of thought. So for me, kind of two sides to this question. So there's kind of the influence that it's actually had on my life. So there's kind of two what we call fateful moments in my life. I won't go into them now. They might come up later in the interview, but basically when I first got my first keyboard and the events that led up to me meeting my now wife, all to do with music and massive turning points in my life. But as far as actually the way music affects me, it sounds a real cliche, but I would say music is in my blood. And actually, I watched
Yep.
Scott S.M. Borthwick is in the chat. Hi, Scott. I watched his interview with you, and absolutely rung true with me about music kind of being a language, and the fact that we all have to learn our language in our respective countries, but music to me has kind of been something that I just kind of knew. I never had to learn it, and I don't know why. There's not really any kind of musical people in my family, as it were. I'm the only person in my family that plays an instrument, but I never really kind of had to be instructed on it. It just feels like it's in my blood, and that's kind of always the way it's been. And music is always there. Like I wake up in the morning, I've got a song playing in my head, probably the last thing I heard before I went to sleep the day before, but it is always playing through in my head. Probably finally the kind of effect that it's had, especially since the C word hit and the L word hit, the effect it's had on my mental health has been, I think it's helped me and probably a lot of people get through it all.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's done the same thing for me too. So let's talk about that before we jump on to the next question. So, because were you gigging or doing anything like that before all that happened? How and when it happened, how did it change the way you approach music, with creativity?
Yeah, probably raised more questions than it answered what I just said. But yeah, I mean, I've played drums in bands for years since I first picked up the sticks in the mid to late 90s, and that's all I've done. I've played drums, I've sung backing vocals in bands, and prior to picking up the sticks, I played some keyboard. Maybe I was lazy, I don't know, but realised that the drums came really naturally to me. But I was in a band when lockdown hit, and I just joined the band, but
Right.
we hadn't actually done any gigs. And so as soon as lockdown hit, I was, I can't do any music, help. And that's when I discovered Garageband, Pete's Show, and just kind of learned how to use it. And
it's a really common story, and I'm not saying that to make you feel like you're just a common person, but it seems to be a very common thing that for creative people or people who have been creative at an earlier stage in their life, and then maybe life got in the way, and it opened the door for this space. It's interesting, isn't it? Like this whole pandemic, all this stuff that's gone down. I've talked about this with other people on the show. Like, for some people, it's terrible. There were people dying who couldn't breathe, and for other people, it's like we got a chance to breathe and take a step back.
Yeah.
The world works in very bizarre ways sometimes, and when it comes, I guess you got to take it, no matter how. And I think the beautiful thing is to see all the amazing creativity that's come out is fantastic. It's just a shame we had to lose so many people for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking exactly the same. I don't know why I was thinking about this when I was down doing the dishes the other day, and I was thinking, what sort of things am I going to talk to Jade about when I'm doing this interview in a few days' time? And I was just thinking about how can I think there's some real good that's come out of this whole situation for me. It's been absolutely awful for a lot of people, but had we not gone into lockdown, I wouldn't have discovered Night Train 1988. I wouldn't have made all this music. I wouldn't have discovered this awesome community that I'm now part of. So, black clouds,
exactly.
silver linings.
Do you recall the music that was being played in your household when you were growing up, and how did it influence you?
So again, you might kind of gather this from the album, but my parents, they split up when I was quite young, 4 or 5. My dad left the household, so I remember my mum playing Leo Sayer and Sade, and the Carpenters, that kind of stuff, real easy listening stuff. I don't really remember what my dad was playing at that sort of time because he left. I saw my dad every week. We'd go and visit him, but in the household, my mum, and then I had my older brother and my older sister. And again, you probably get this from the album if you've heard it, but my brother was my hero. My brother was my idol. My brother was basically my father figure at that point. So whatever my brother was into, I was into. And my sort of earliest memory is my brother being massively into the Eagles and Dire Straits. So I was into those two. And then the big turning point for me was where my brother started listening to Rush. And I remember hearing that my first Rush song, I think it was Tears. I was like, ooh. And my brother got, I think it was Grace Under Pressure, the Grace Under Pressure tour video, and playing it, and that was it. I was hooked. And I remember just after I got into Rush and heard them, they brought out the album Counterparts, and I bought it. I remember I had a little bit of money saved up, and I was either going to buy a snooker cue or I was going to buy the album Counterparts. So I want the album. So I've still got that album now. My brother bought it for me, and that's kind of where I went on my rock prog journey. But I'd say at that point, whatever my brother was into, I was into, and we kind of went from Rush, and that's when I discovered Dream Theater.
Was that the first album you had bought for you? If not, do you recall the first album you bought and the first one that was given to you?
Well, funny
awesome!
Enough, like a bit show and tell with this one. So, yay! Like a bit show and tell. So, this was the first album which I bought.
Wow!
Ever. I bought this from. Yeah, I bought this from somebody who I went to school with, and this wasn't a particularly successful album as far as Rush go, but I love it. It's still one of my favourites to this day, and I can't even remember really how it happened, but somebody I went to school with, I think either his parents or his older brother, had this album and decided they didn't want it. I'd said, "Oh, I've discovered Rush," and I.
He probably didn't understand it. That's why he was selling it. Yeah, he was like, "What the hell is this kind of music?"
No. Yeah, but I don't know if the people who are listening, I don't know if they heard Rush Crusher Steel. It didn't do particularly well from when they brought out their first album right up until 2112, which really obviously took. Steel is just an amazing album, in my opinion. They recorded it in a matter of days because at that point the record company were like, not really sure we've got faith in you, so they went in and they recorded it really quickly. But it's an absolutely awesome album.
So that was the first one you got. So was the one that you got from your brother the first one that was given to you? Oh, so that Rush album that you just showed, you got that from a friend at school, yeah?
Yeah.
You bought that, yeah.
I bought that from a friend at school.
And
yes.
What was? Yeah. Do you remember what was given to you? What you got for a present?
So. Given to me, blimey.
It's normally something you didn't want. That's the thing.
I suppose you could say, yeah. I mean, like a Dream Theater album, for instance. This is probably the nearest to it. I was given a Dream Theater album, and it was Awake, which they released in the sort of early mid-90s. It was given to me by a friend, and I remember hearing the opening to that album, which I don't know if you know Awake, but it opens with a track called 6 O'Clock, which is just a drum fill, unbelievable drum fill. I mean, after hearing Neil Peart's drumming and then hearing that opening drum fill, I can believe it. But to be honest, I remember bringing it home and thinking, kind of all right. I put it to one side, and no surprise, as my brother listened to it, I think I must have had it for weeks or months, and my brother listened to the album and he said, "That album you bought him, that's really, really good." So, because my brother gave it his seal of approval, I listened to it, and that's kind of where my Dream Theater journey started. I think that's probably the nearest thing to someone kind of giving me an album, as it were.
I'm going to go against the grain here, and normally I'll wait till after I play a second song, but I'm going to say hello to folks, and we'll get back into it, because I know there's quite a few of you here. So, Sai, effing good to see you. Friggsy's here. Kim Hudson, SM Borthwick. Scott, good to see you. Gary Hubbs is here. Who else is here as I scroll down the list? Black Covers. Hello, Ingo. Good to see you. Joe Glenn. Russ8889. Thomas Christ, of course, is here. He's very rarely not here. Who else do I see in my magic mirror? Doctor's Orders. Man, this Doctor's Orders thing, I'm going to have to put a patent on it, because everybody's putting their effects on it when they say it. Damn, copyright much. Auntie G is here. Auntie G's got a song dropping tomorrow, I think, a video clip dropping tomorrow, which I can't wait to hear. Scott Kidwell Music, hello to you. Let's see who else is here as I was scrolling down. Ed B. Metal. I saw Dwight is here as well, who was on the show last week. Hello, Dwight. Hope you're doing well. Gary Hubbs. Did I say Gary Hubbs? Hubbs. Gary Hubbs. There you go. I said it 4 times. I saw Pete Johns sneak in there, and I can't do the effects today. Jenny is here as well. Hello, Jenny. Who else did I see? Welton Kinder. Hello to you. Not got a nice turnout of people here, so thank you all for being here. I think I saw Gregory O'Sullivan, Audible Video. I'm pretty sure I saw Marshall here as well, going from memory. My memory's shit, so forgive me. Who else do I see as we get down towards the bottom? I think I've got Lily Pillies. Hello to you. Drive by Pete, yeah. Hello, John David Lees as well. And I think that's everybody for now. If I haven't said hello to you, I do apologize, and I'll do a catch up a little bit later. So now you've mentioned instruments. So was it drums first that you got into, or keyboard?
So it was keyboard first. So I almost promised a story about the keyboard thing. So I was 10-ish years old, and I'd been badgering my mum about buying me a snooker table, and it was in the Argos catalogue. I don't know,
but I know
Argos in Australia. But yeah, so I've been looking at this snooker table in the Argos catalogue. Right, Mum, I want that. That's for either my birthday or Christmas. I can't remember. But we were due to go into town. We lived out in the sticks. We were due to go in town on a bus and get on a snooker table. And we were sat there waiting for the bus, and a friend of my mum's drives past and stops and says, "Oh, you waiting for a bus? Do you want a lift?" This had never happened before or since, and my mum says, "Yeah, okay, we'll have a lift." He drops us into town. He drops us on a road which we would never normally be dropped to, and on this road is a second-hand shop, and in the window of this second-hand shop, I see this Yamaha keyboard, similar to the one in the From Boy to Man video. And oh, Mum, I want that keyboard. My mum's, "We come in to get your snooker table. No, I want that keyboard." So my mum buys me this keyboard. That's the first sort of fateful moment, I think, of my life. Had that friend of my mum's not come along and given us that lift into town, I can't think how differently my life kind of would have gone. I never would have had, I don't think, any of this in my life. So bought the keyboard, brought it home, and basically did my best to learn keyboard at that point. I bought a how to learn keyboard book.
That's the one.
I bought a how to learn keyboard book, and ironically, in that keyboard book, I don't know if I've still got it, was the song Vienna by Ultravox, which I covered earlier this year. Yeah, but yeah, I did my best to learn keyboard on that. Back then, obviously, there was no such thing as YouTube or anything like that. So I kind of, I don't know, I was a little bit impatient because there was notes and stuff to learn. And that's kind of when I moved on to the drums. But I'm sure that's a question somewhere a bit down the line. But yeah, so that's kind of where I started. I started with the keyboard, and then realised I think I kind of had a natural flair for the drums.
Notes to learn. Give me sticks. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah. So after a while, I decided that I think I was kind of better at hitting stuff than I was at playing the keys. My stepdad at the time, he would stop by the door to my bedroom, and I'd be smacking the hell out of Yellow Pages with a pair of drumsticks which I bought. And again, I don't know if you've got Yellow Pages in Australia, but yeah. So I would basically be listening to Rush through the headphones, and I'd be playing along to Rush on the Yellow Pages on my pillow or whatever it was I could find. And my stepdad said to my mum, "Oh, he really needs to get a drum kit." And I've been badgering like both of them to get a drum kit, but of course, like we lived in a semi-detached 3-bedroom house. And no one really wants the sound of drums sort of echoing out to the neighbours, echoing out to everybody else. So it was me doing that. And I talked to my stepdad about it quite recently, where he sort of said, "Oh, I'm really, really glad I convinced your mum to let you have that drum kit."
So like today where you can just get an electronic drum kit and smash away to your heart's content and not a person needs to know. Happier days now.
No. And it was, again, in the track on the album, the summer of '95, and that's basically how it went. I worked all summer picking potatoes on a farm to earn the £350 it cost to buy my first drum kit, which was a Hohner kit, really ugly white thing. And it was an ex-display model, so it had been in the window of the shop, and it faded around on one side, but I didn't care. And it had 5 pieces, and it had 1 crash cymbal, a hi-hat, and that was basically it. And I didn't even have a stool at that point. I would sit on my bed and play the kit, and gradually built it up once I.
It's funny, isn't it? You do what you can with what you've got when you love something that much. I mean, I remember too being a kid, and you know, we'd record stuff on cassette, have friends around. We had like Kiss makeup and stuff. And we'd put on Kiss makeup. My mum would make these cardboard costumes for Kiss, and we'd sit there and record all this shit and do the drums with an upside down garbage bin with some sticks we found out in the backyard, and we thought it was fucking awesome. You know, we didn't give a shit. And like the people would come around and we'd play it going, "Listen, this is our first band." You know, I was probably like 9 years old going, "Check it out." And I remember all my friends going, "It sounds like crap." It's like, no, it doesn't. It sounds like a band, man. Can't hear the rhythm. But you do what you do, you know?
Yeah. Years before that, me and my brother played a little bit of guitar. But years before that, we would get paint pots and pots out from the kitchen. And I remember having a puffy. I don't know if you're a puffy, a puff. A thing you sit on, and we would have that lying on the side, and we'd have a pair of high heel shoes with something attached to the end. I can't remember what it was, as a drum beater, a bass drum beater. And then we would use an old biscuit tin with some with like a necklace around it to make the snare sound. That was my first experience of playing the drums. That was obviously years before, and I didn't know I was going to end up as a drummer after that. But yeah, that was the sort of stuff we used to get up to when we were younger.
I think the writing was on the wall if you went to that kind of level to make a drum kit. It's interesting, you know. You're talking about when I was a kid too. They called him a puff. And you can't really say that these days, or people are going to get offended. But that's what they were called. And if you don't know what they are, I don't know. Maybe Americans don't know what they are. It's like a little, I guess, sponge thing with like leather or whatever it is covering it, like material, and you put your feet up on it. You put it in front of your chair. And I remember to get around that these days, I think I called it a puffet. Just.
Yeah, puffy is what we used to call it.
You say, come around, you can put your feet up on my puff if you want, and people would be like, what? What is there? So using a derogatory term, do you have some... Yeah. This show's already...
It's the accent on the end, isn't it?
There you go. Audible Videos corrected us with his hoity-toity snobby stuff. It's called a footstool. All right, you be you, Audible, all right? We call them puffs here. Holy shit, how do we get down this rabbit hole? What's going on? So,
Let's back up. Let's back up.
So you said you didn't have any lessons or anything like that. So I'm guessing drumming became the main thing that you were doing. And no lessons. How did you get used to playing? Did you just play along to records? What was your routine to get good on drums?
yeah, that was basically it. Just playing along to what I heard. I remember. I remember the sort of first time I discovered it. When you've done a fill or when you've done anything, you're supposed to hit a cymbal and a bass drum at the same time. And I can't even remember where that came from. But because I hadn't had any lessons, it was a case of just kind of picking these things up as you went. I can't even remember kind of where I learned that. But yeah, it was basically just listening to Rush, and then once I discovered Dream Theater, just listening to Mike Portnoy's playing, setting my sights very, very high. But I do remember for a time playing along to, I had the Bon Jovi, the best of on tape. I remember playing along to the Bon Jovi stuff because I remember thinking, this is really, really straightforward and simple, but it was really good for kind of, how do I keep time? How do I do the part that a drummer's supposed to do? Obviously, before I joined the band, I actually had to do it for real.
Well, I'm going to take a break for now, and we're going to play another track. And you just uploaded this one 7 hours ago. I was like, I went over to your page and I'm thinking, did you just upload these especially for this show? I didn't know if you did or not.
Kind of. They're basically videos that were part of my premiere, which I've just gone in and I've into LumaFusion, I've edited out and I've put in individually because they were. I haven't done much promotion of the album really. Not that that's particularly me, but I thought I'm going to put a couple of tracks from the album on my for people that don't want to have to go through the whole thing. So that's kind of
what you can do too. Before we jump in, you can go back to your and you can do a YouTube search to do this. You can go back to your album and go into your YouTube creator page, and you can actually put timestamps in the description. So I think you put like 0.00 and then the 2 whatever. And you can put all the timestamps in. So on the actual premiere video, you can just skip between the tracks. It's a really cool way to not have to split up your videos. There you go.
I was meant to do that, but I didn't have a clue how. So
all you need to, the beautiful thing is we live on YouTube, so we can just do a YouTube search and someone's going to show you how to do it. What would we do without YouTube?
Very true.
Creating content for YouTube, constantly using YouTube as a constant source to help us be better YouTubers. It's a snake eating its own tail. I'm going to play The Working World. So this is an album mix with a revised video that you've just put up, and then we'll come back and have a talk about that. So folks, you ready? Grab yourself a turkey leg or whatever it is you're munching on right now and something to drink. And let's have a listen to, let me make sure I've got my volume up and all that jazz. This is The Working World by Night Train 1988. Boom. Maybe if I got the sound happening, that would work too.
His college days are in the past. This easy life could never last. His working life had begun. A boy no more, childhood gone. Drove all day from here to there. The days were long, he didn't care. The man that joined the working world, he turned 18, met a girl. For the job, he soon got bored. He pled for change, was ignored. So many years he did the same, as if stuck in some endless game. With other things, shop, he got engaged. Happiness found him, he had changed. Soulmate came along and stole his heart. New chapter of his life about to start.
Pete John says he's changing his name to Pete John's 88 because apparently all the best artists have 88 in their name. What do you think about that, Al?
Brilliant.
Get on it, Pete. Go and change your other channel to Studio Live 88.
Yeah.
I'm going to jump around a little bit today because and say hello to a few other people who've joined. So hello to Sean Chandler. Hello to who else did I see? Holy Ghost. I think I saw a couple of other people who've come in a little bit late, so I want to catch you all. Empirism. Hello to you as well. Let's talk about the album just for a sec because we just played that, and the one theme I found with the album is, and you mentioned Dream Theater. There's a real story to this album from start to finish. It's a journey. It's definitely a story. What is this the story about for those people out there who haven't heard this as yet?
Okay, so this is basically the story of my life, right from being a child and the real kind of happy days of my early life, right up to meeting my wife and getting married, And so we're talking kind of late 90s, and everything since is kind of everything since. But so basically it kind of starts, I don't want to take up too much time, but it starts basically with, okay. So the original, the kind of first instrumental track is supposed to be kind of the idea of kind of a Saturday morning sitting watching TV. So changing the channels between Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Thundercats and Ghostbusters and all the brilliant shows that were on in the 80s. That's the idea of the first instrumental, just to get you into it. From Boy to Man is basically the idea. And actually, From Boy to Man, I started this track. This was the very, very first track I started on the album. That sort of intro to the track. I think I actually put that on a YouTube video way back. I think I called it a Hello from Night Train 1988. And at the very end, it just had that kind of idea of that song. But I didn't complete that song at that time. I didn't really know what to do with it. And I moved on through. The third track, The Aces Kid, this was the less happy time in my life. So this is where my mum and dad were. There was a lot of arguing in the house. Things didn't go well. My dad left. The Aces side of it is more about something that I've kind of discovered more recently. Aces are adverse childhood experiences, and this is something that if children grow up in a I would say abusive household. I wouldn't say my household was abusive, but there was a lot of arguing and shouting and stuff going on. The effect it has on you in later life. A bit of artistic license in that, but I wanted to kind of educate really as to how the effects it can have on you as an adult. That was the only kind of unhappy part of the album. Moving on to the first instrumental track, Seaside. That was about just my love of the sea. I love being by the sea, in the sea, on the sea. And then moving on from Seaside, I think I went on to Brother, which is the track about how close myself and my brother were, my hero, my dad at that point. And then when he met his partner and decided to move down to, anyone who knows the UK knows, moved down to Cornwall from where I am in Devon. And I was absolutely distraught to lose my best friend and my father figure. And then moving on to college, which was me basically finishing school and going to college. And the feel of that track is kind of a dance track, because that was the point where I spent a bit of time going to clubs and and discovering all that kind of wonderful stuff. And then after that, it was on to the summer of '95, and that's when I bought my drum kit and kind of joined the musical world, and everything kind of changed for me. So that track is about the getting my drums, joining my band, and all that wonderful stuff. And then, of course, once college was out of the way, it was onto the serious stuff of the track you just heard, The Working World, and basically going out in the world and having to be serious and all that wonderful stuff. But of course, hand in hand with that was I met my wonderful wife, who I've been together with now for 24 years, and the kind of responsibilities that came along with it. And then moving on from there is goes on to the God, terrible, isn't it?
There you go, I'll put it on the screen for you.
Yeah, thanks, Jade. English Rose. So English Rose is about me basically getting together with. It was the night I met my wife. So this was the second sort of fateful musical experience of my life. So I was in a band at that point called Twisted. Twisted were a kind of Brit rock pop band that I was in. We were recording that day and wasn't going that well. And one of the guys in the band said, "Oh, I think there's a jam night, open mic night. I don't know what people know it as, up at one of the local pubs." So we went up to this jam night. Just happened to be the night that my wife Tara was able to go up to this jam night. we got up, played a few songs, and after we played, she came up and asked if anybody could drum to a Blind Melon song. I'd never heard of Blind Melon, but it got us talking, and yeah, it kind of went on from there. But so a couple of years later, we were married, and that's kind of what that song is about. The second half of the song is about us actually getting married. The other track on there is I See You in Your Baby's Eyes. That's actually a poem that my mum wrote for me about 20 odd years ago when I had my son, and it was just about her thoughts and feelings around that. And the final track is, I kind of wanted to go out of a sort of Dream Theater style epic instrumental track, and that was The Day You Leave Your Childhood Behind. So the kind of the line from the poem at the end, I just thought sort of finished the album off well.
It's interesting, you know, because it feels like a concept album, and you know, I hate the term concept album because it sounds so. It always reminds me of like some kind of prog band who's done like a whole thing, like it's a Lord of the Rings trilogy or something, and it's about like elves and shit. I don't know why I just think that, but my question is about creating an album like that, and it's what I really love about this album is that it is so raw, and you know, you know me through my music and what I do on here. I'm really attracted to music that's really raw and 100% honest, and it is. It takes a lot of effort to write an album, and I know you've done an EP before this. Was doing an EP before this and then writing something so raw and real, was it harder or easier, or what were some of the challenges of creating something so close to your heart? Did it take longer? What were some of the things that were challenges for you making this album?
Yeah, absolutely. Arrival, my first EP, was kind of as it's entitled. Really, it was the track Arrival was just the first bit of music I wrote. It's an instrumental, quite simple. It was a bit a chaotic album or EP. Really, it was. There was a track on there which was inspired by The Fog, my favorite John Carpenter track. It was me kind of finding my feet, I think, as an artist. There was a track on there about sort of police brutality in America and the George Floyd case. And there was a track on there about my anxiety, which is called Despair. The track that made it to the EP was actually the synthwave remix, which I did. If you go right back to the very beginning on my YouTube channel, it's the original of that track, where I was using a lot of autoplay on Garageband, where I was kind of experimenting with that. It was more of a kind of an acoustic version of it. But yeah, there was no kind of real thought to the EP. It was just, I'm going to put some stuff together. Oh, I've discovered Disco Kid through Pete's channel. I'm just going to chuck 5 songs together and chuck them out. Whereas From Boy to Man was very much, it was very much therapy for me, really. It was the kind of good and bad stuff that happened in my life, and I don't even know where the kind of concept came from, really, in regards to, right, I'm going to write an album about my life. I'm not really sure where that came from, but it started with From Boy to Man and just kind of went on from there.
Yeah, look, it's an incredible album, and I do urge everybody out here to go listen to it, because as I said earlier, like you did the premiere after this show. I didn't really know what to expect because I really didn't know that much about you. And yeah, I remember that premiere too. Everybody was just glued to it, and it was a long premiere because it's a long album too. You know, it goes for like an hour, 25 minutes, but everybody was glued to it the entire time, and that's saying a lot. If you can keep somebody's attention for an hour and 25 minutes, you're on a winner, I believe.
I couldn't believe it that most people were still there come the end. I just absolutely couldn't believe it, because I know Michael, I don't know if he's here tonight, aka Zealand Band, but he gave me a comment afterwards, and I always take the kind of constructive feedback on board, and he said, you know, he loved what I was doing, but he kind of hinted at it maybe being a little bit too long. But the way I kind of look at the stuff I do is I write it and I do it all for me. And if people like it, brilliant. You know, it's kind of. I think that's the important thing, and I'm sure there'll be a question about this at the end. But the important thing about making music is that you do it for you. You write, record music that you enjoy, and if other people enjoy it, that's brilliant. But this was kind of, it was a therapeutic experience for me.
I think when you write songs so honestly and so to the bone, I think you do reach more people. Because no matter where we come from, we all shit, we all bleed, we all piss, we're all the same, no matter what. And at some time during our lives, we've all experienced some of these things. Like even if you, like you said, you touched on with this album, not domestic violence, I guess, like, you know, upheaval in the home and stuff. Even if it didn't happen to you, you grew up with people around you that it was happening, and friends that it was happening, and you may have been the friend of somebody who came over to your house. So it does touch all of us. And I think it's one of the things that really hit me really hard about this album, that I felt connected to it. And even though I'm not really a synth wave kind of person or whatever, it doesn't matter, because the music and what you're putting out there really transcends and pulls people in. If it connects, it connects. There's no magic potion to it. It just is what it is. Did you at any stage before getting into recording music yourself, had you had any experience recording in a studio before that?
Two. One. If I could find the video, and it was done on an old VHS, if you could find it, then it would have you laughing for hours. So I was in a band called Blood Wedding, and it was a grunge band, basically, sort of pure grunge. The other two guys in the band, John and Tim, were massively into Nirvana, massively. This was in the mid to late 90s, so around the time that Kurt Cobain took his own life. We did some original stuff. And it was absolutely 100% the most fun band I've ever been in. And we went to this recording studio out in the middle of nowhere, where we took our equipment. And I said, there's a chess video of the whole process of recording it, which the most I've ever had in my entire life. We recorded a 3-song EP, and my first sort of recording music. I've still got on a tape somewhere. After that, it was basically recording at my at the college I was at the time with the band I did after that called Twisted, who were a Brit rock band, and that was very clinical compared to that. But that's kind of really, up until that point, the only experiences I've had with recording, and that was done on very, very simple equipment at that point, before any kind of DAWs were in existence.
You mentioned covers before. You've done quite a few covers on here, and what I like about the covers that you have done is that they're really broad, and you've actually covered 2 artists from this community who happen to be in the chat right now. One of them is Thomas Christ, and the other one is Pete Johns. What inspired you to cover those 2 particular artists?
That is a very, very good question. It was basically, when it came to covering Pete's song, it was coming up to, I think, episode 50 of YML. I think I wanted to show my kind of appreciation really for the impact that joining this community had on me, and the Pete's videos and what I'd learned from Studio Live Today. Because when I decided to hit that button to go on to Garageband in whatever time it was early in this year, and I had no clue, I came across Pete's channel on YouTube and just started being on a journey. And I wanted to kind of pay homage to Pete and the channel. And on top of that, Murder in Time is just a really, really good song. And I wanted to Night Train 1988 it, and basically show Pete how much appreciated he'd done. When it came to covering Closets of Decay by Tom, similar sort of thing, really. Really awesome song. Tom's become a really good friend, and I think it kind of deserved a bit of a homage. And I say after that, Jade, watch your space. I just need to find the right song to cover of yours.
Wow. I look forward to that. Well, speaking of, I'm going to play the Pete Johns one. Just we'll have a break for a second because I think it's an amazing cover. Plus, it'll give me a chance to plug something straight after it, which is interesting. So, folks, kick back, relax. It's only 3 minutes of your time. Well, let's play this, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about how Al creates music, all of his processes and all that kind of stuff, and how he became a multi-instrumentalist. So this is a cover of Pete Johns' Murdering Time. As soon as I've got the volume ready to go this time, boom!
Sensing the darkness, only feeling the pain, only time is behind me, don't have nothing to gain, at the end of my tether.
You know what I noticed? Before we talk about how great that performance was, Pete points a lot, doesn't he? It's just size written it too. A montage of Pete pointing at different things that ain't there. I know. I'm going to start calling him Pointer Pete. He could get a job in the Wiggles. Oh. Hey, Pete, if you're in the chat still, didn't your parents ever tell you pointing is rude? Love you, Pete, so much. He's an amazing human being. We all love him. All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. So we talked briefly about you picking up a keyboard and being a drummer. Where the fuck did you get that voice from? You got an amazing voice, man. Like, have you had lessons? Is this a natural thing? If so, I want to throttle you for it. I had to work so hard for mine.
Oh, it's very kind of you to say that, Jade. No, I haven't had any lessons. Basically, it just comes from singing backing vocals in whatever band I've been in. Singing backing vocals in bands since the mid '90s. But I had one go at singing lead vocals once on a track in a band called Stiliano that I was in, but I won't go into that. Where we did like a 2-minute song about taking a tea break. And I was absolutely petrified standing at the front and singing in front of a microphone at the front of everybody. It was like having a drum kit in front of me and singing was like my kind of protection. But as far as actually singing goes, yeah, I don't know. I've always sung. I've sung along to. My dad used to play music in the car when we'd go down on holiday or to the beach, and my brother and sister and I would sing in the back of the car, and my brother would do a bit of air guitar and stuff like that. And singing's always been a massive thing, but kind of always backing vocals, never lead vocals. Having kind of the courage to sing some lead vocals is a very, very new thing that's come about this year, basically through the whole lockdown Garageband process using this microphone I've got behind me here.
Look, you're absolutely a natural. You're one of the most natural artists I've had on here who's, for somebody who hasn't had any lessons. And I have to give you credit here because for such a short time using these tools, using iOS and Garageband, you've really nailed the production of your vocals. You're really pulling nice sounds for your vocal. It sounds really warm, and I think whatever you're doing, stick at it. Stick with that. Lock that in, because your vocals cut through on all of the songs that you've sung on, and it's a hard thing to do. Like you would see it too. How many people do we see on these channels, on the Facebook group, saying, "I can't get my vocals to cut through"? What do you use anything special with your vocals to actually get that to cut through? Is there any like specific go-to when you open up a GarageBand project? Is there a go-to vocal setting for you to create that warmth?
No, not really. It all. I don't know. I don't know. Pointing Pete still in the chat, but it kind of all comes from what kind of Pete's gone through initially. Usually the kind of default vocal setting on GarageBand. I kind of post-production use a few things to kind of thicken it up, which again, spoiler alert, I'll probably go into when you talk about the apps later on. But yeah, I use a bit to thicken it up. I kind of like the sort of Dave Gilmour style, thickened, almost double vocal sort of sound. But as far as actually recording goes, I don't really know what I'm doing, to be honest. It's been like you say, been quite a short while. I started actually that song I talked about earlier on, Despair, which I think you kind of brought up briefly. That was recorded using this microphone here on the old Apple headphones, and it was shortly after that I started using my wife's old EV vocal mic that she used years ago when she was singing, before I got my Audio-Technica DT750 here. And yeah, as far as actually settings on GarageBand goes, I use the kind of lead vocal setting and just sort of mess around with delay and reverb and the EQs just to get it how I like it sounding, basically.
It goes to show with a lot of what Pete says that you don't need a lot of fancy apps to get a sound that you want, for that to be so clear and cutting through. I think people tend to overthink vocals sometimes, that there's such an emphasis on it it's got to cut through, and I think the more relaxed you are about it and don't stress it, that's like anything. As soon as you start stressing about something, going, oh, it's not working, and then you're just creating anxiety for yourself and let it flow. You're one of the most natural artists I've had on the show, because even myself, I've had singing lessons for the longest time, even though I could sing beforehand, but just to learn all those extra things. Can you imagine just how good you would be if you'd spend a bit of time with a vocal singer? Is that something you've considered doing? Nah, I wouldn't.
Possibly. My wife had some. My wife Tara had some vocal lessons years ago, and she talks to me about breathing and stuff like that. I try to keep that in mind when I'm singing, because especially when I'm recording, especially when you're doing take after take after take, and oh god, it's getting a bit exhausting now. I tried to kind of keep that in mind. There was I don't know if you've heard it. I did a cover of Pat Benatar's "Love Is a Battlefield," and I remember Kim saying when that was Pink on Tom's show that, God, there was loads of different vocal layers on this. That track took me days, if not weeks, to get right. And I remember like just being here and thinking, oh my god, I'm exhausted now doing this. So yeah, I think sometimes you can kind of overdo it when it comes to vocals, but a bit of a perfectionist, not saying I'm perfect, but a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to that kind of thing, and it can get a bit much sometimes.
And one of the reasons I actually played that cover by Pete is just so I could do a bit of cross promotion here. Why not just do it in the middle of the show? So this week for my opening hour, I'm actually doing a tribute to Pete Johns. and there you go. There's my attempt to. I've got me holding a mask of Pete over my face, and if you look at that photo closely, I actually I cut out Pete's eyes, if you can see that, and then I tried to get mine to creep through. It's not creepy not creepy in any way. I sent it to Pete last night, and he's just like, "Shit, it puts the lotion in the basket. That's a bit fucking creepy." Because hey, at the end of the,
I'm liking the light blue, by the way. It's really nice.
Thanks, cool. Yeah, it's always hard to find a new color for each season. So I class you as a multi instrumentalist because you do everything. And again, have all of these instruments. Is this just been from picking up Garageband and noodling around? Is this how you've come to be able to pull? I know your drums. Clearly, you're a drummer, and keys you've got experience at. But it just seems like you've got so much going on musically. How have you progressed in recent times? Has it been through things like Garageband?
Yeah, basically. I'm sure a lot of the people in the chat are the same, but I kind of have this way of listening to a song and kind of picking out each individual part. People often say to me, "Oh, how are you able to cover that?" It's like I sort of go back to my Vienna cover. I hadn't realised until I went to cover that track just how much there was to it, and it's sort of a case of listening to the track and breaking down this particular keyboard part, this bass part, this particular part. Whether or not it's something that most people don't have or do have, I don't know, but I have the way of listening to a track and breaking it down instrument by instrument, even to sort of the bass guitar, for instance, which I've never played, but just I can kind of hear what's going on and do my best to kind of recreate that using GarageBand.
So how long did the album take to record it?
I think it was about 6 to 8 months. I started it back in. I was trying to find something that actually had a kind of a date as to when I started the very first track. All I could really go by was that "Hello" from Night Train 1988 that I did, where I had kind of part of the very first track recorded. I think it was kind of 6 to 8 months from going, right, I'm going to do an album about my life, to kind of getting it released. And it, I enjoyed the process, but it kind of come the end, it was a bit, I'm done with this now. I really want to get this out. I'm sure that's kind of normal for people when they're putting an album out. But yeah, it was an enjoyable process, but it was also, you appreciate, I know, because you're excellent at mastering, but mastering was something that I'd never done before, production of something I'd never done before. But I wanted to kind of use my musical ear, as it were, to try and get it produced using Pete's videos, other videos, your videos, to try and kind of get it right. And the mastering process using Final Touch was again a big learning process, but that kind of took a while as well just to get that right. But I was adamant I was going to do that myself to try and get it.
It's a hard thing, because by the end of when you're writing an album that has so much of your heart and soul in it, and you're getting towards the end, there's two paths you can go by. It's a famous line from a band. And sometimes you end up going down both paths, which can be really hard to find a way out of. There's that path of trying to let it go, because you've got to let it go at some stage. And then there's that path of you're so sick of it that you don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And I was getting to the point where, and I'm sure you've been at this point where, like, right, I've gone back over that track so many times, I'm going to have to get to a point now where I make a decision sound. It's like the Working World. I had that particular version I posted up earlier. I had a comment from I apologize, a guy called Mike who's subscribed to my channel, sort of saying, "Oh yeah, maybe you could have done this, maybe you could have done that." And the version that I had previously on YouTube was a version that I'd done before I released the album. The mix was very different, and it's you can mess around with it and reproduce it and remix it and remaster it so many times. You have to really get to a point where you make a decision. Right, this is the version I'm going to put out.
Yeah, I've been dealing with this for a while, because I've been working on my Dread Circus album for about 8 years, and the reason is because it got started back when iOS was a completely different thing, and this whole thing was made on iOS. And people ask me all the time, am I just holding on to this album way too long? And it's hard for me to even explain. I will say a little bit of it. The album's virtually done, but the way it's being released is very unique. And because of what happened with the pandemic, I can't release it. And I've put too much effort into it just to drop it in DistroKid. There's a whole concept behind this album. The way I won't be doing gigs with it, I'll actually be performing it in art galleries. There's a whole fucking thing to this. So I can't do it until the world opens up again and I'm able to book art galleries to have this thing. So I'm just sitting here on an album going, fuck, I hate this album. I just want to get on with it, you know, but it's holding me back, because not all the time is it that you're being a perfectionist. As we've found out, the world got in the way and has changed things. And you've just got to, I had to go through this mental thing of like, I've got to let it go for now, because at the same time, nobody's heard it still. So it's still going to have impact. But to me, the longer it goes, the older it feels, but it's not. So once you're able to go, it's okay. Like, it's still going to be new. And that's why I've been doing so many other projects, to like do something in the meantime. Let's talk about some apps. Yeah. Let's go through some apps that you would use in conjunction, or even if your Garageband is one of them. Let's talk about some apps that you use to help you even not only just make music.
Okay, I jotted a few down. Audio share is a big one. That's first on my list, because when I first started, when I got to the point where I was mastering and actually taking the songs off, putting them into the files, audio share has made such a big difference. I was using Dropbox to start with, and that was just an absolute nightmare. The process from going from, right, I'm going to take this from Final Touch now and put it into somewhere where I can actually take it from here on, was such a slow process. From Final Touch, if I would go through audio share, I could listen to it, I could see it, and if I needed to change any kind of volume or anything like that, it was a case of pop back into Final Touch, alter the volume slightly, go back in, have a listen to it. It was such a smooth process, and it was a real help. I couldn't believe I'd been using Dropbox up until that point. I know Pete talks about audio share a lot, but really did make a massive difference for me when I was finishing
we've
this
talked about it
album.
a lot on this show. It's one of those apps that you definitely have to have, and it's currently on sale for Black Friday at $2.99. So you've got no excuse to not own it. The amazing thing is, it ties in with so many apps. They've really made it tie in with so many other apps to share things between, and it's just so flexible. So if you're not an audio share user, this Black Friday, spend the $3. It'll really help you to just get shit done. That's, because you don't need to you don't need the stress of not being able to get the little things done, and that's where it helps. It just takes that stress away from sharing things around, moving things between apps. That's the beauty of it. What else do you have there?
I hadn't written this one down, actually, but I was just thinking about it when I was talking about that. And that's the, what's it called? Audio penalty, volume penalty. I can't remember what it's called, but people about this as well. It's not an app, it's a website.
Loudness penalty, isn't it? Something like that.
Loudness penalty, thank you. I just in the very last stages of the album, I used this. I had it kind of loaded up on the iPad, and it was a good. It's not 100% accurate, but it was a really good guide. Once I'd got the kind of the file, the version of the track finished, I chuck it into that app, and it gives you an idea of whether you're putting it up to iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music. A lot of them don't adjust the volume when it goes to their platform, but it would give an idea of it, whether it was a little bit too loud or a little bit too quiet. You can't use it 100% accurately, but it would give me a really good idea as to whether, because I heard you talk about this the other day, when you're doing an album, it's very different to when you're releasing a single song. You've got to make sure that the volume is kind of the same throughout, because you don't want someone to be sort of sitting and listening to it, and then it gets to the next track and it's like, whoa, especially because From Boy to Man, it flows through. There's no gap between songs. There's no kind of nowhere to hide on that. I purposely did it so that it would flow the whole way through, and if it gets from one track to another and it just all of a sudden gets really loud, then that would just be awful. So that was quite a useful tool.
There's an app which I was meant to do a review on. I don't think I have yet. It's called here it is. I found it. Let's go over here. Your Lean Loudness Meter Lite. So there's a free version, and basically if you pay for the subscription, unfortunately it's a subscription. I think I've already got it. I've got it unlocked here. What it does is, let me show you here. Presets. So you've got these presets here, and you can actually choose which one. So you can actually put your song in here and choose Spotify, choose YouTube, and it'll help you set the levels to each individual thing. So you can see the Apple Music, Apple Podcast, Tidal, Deezer, Amazon Music, and it has all the presets to help you get through it. It does have a fairly big price tag. I can't remember how much. It's like $20 or something like that. Maybe I'm probably wrong, but it's like having the loudness penalty as an app permanently on your iPad. So I still haven't done a show on it, but I definitely will do very soon. But there's another alternative for you there. Anything?
I thought there was an app version of Loudness Penalty, but I couldn't find it. So whether or not that was something in the past, I
don't know if this is made by those particular people, but I know this app here, this Ulean Loudness Meter, it is a PC app as well. So it's been around for a long time, and they finally ported it to iOS. So I think this is the closest thing we have to it on iOS as an app. But thank you, Si, for putting the link in the description. I can't remember how much. Even if I looked at it now, I think it's free to download anyway. So you can go get it now and download it, but I don't think it gives you there you go, $9.99 per year subscription. Or there is an unlock, I think, because I have a total unlock. So anything else on the App Store we should look at?
Yeah, so not apps as such, but more plugins for GarageBand. Again, go back to our friend Pointing Pete. The sort of vocal thickening advice that Pete gives. So there's a app or plugin called Stereolag, and one that's built into Apple called AU Pitch, and I use those whenever I use vocals. Pete put a video up a while back about sort of using Stereolag and AU Pitch, about sort of creating 4 extra vocal sort of channels, and having the sort of Stereolag and having the pitch slightly adjusted on those to thicken out the vocals. And I use that every single time I do vocals. And how much I mix it into the vocals varies on the particular song. Sometimes, I mean, I did that sort of live version of one of my old songs recently. I didn't use it at all, but generally I will use that because I kind of like the David Gilmour style, almost sort of doubled vocal sound. So really, really useful when it comes to picking out vocals. And you can, once you've done this process, you can decide on how much in the mix you want the thickening. So it's if that's the one, watch it. Really, really useful.
Yeah, all you need to do to find it, is just write Pete Johns vocal thickening, and you'll come up with that. And Sai has put in the chat too the Stereolag app, which is pretty much the same kind of thing. What it does, and it is free. The Stereolag. It's
it's free.
If I can find that, can I find it in here? There it is. Stereolag time. So this thing's free as well, and it pretty much does the same kind of thing as what Pete's doing there as well. So you've got a multitude of options. Yeah, this thing's amazing too. This thing's a must-have.
Yeah, so it's basically, you just create 4 new versions of your vocal. You go sort of 10, then 24, then 24, then 10, and Pete gives the instructions on how to do it, but it makes a real difference to the sound of the vocals. I say I use that every time.
I just do my Pointing Pete impersonation. He's never going to lose that name. Was there anything else you want to tell us about?
The last one I was going to go with, just it's an app that I won on one of your shows recently, and that's Vivim. I haven't really had a chance. Things have been a bit mad with work. I haven't really had a chance to play around with this yet. I had a brief play around with it earlier, but Vivim, which is a music sort of visualizer, and lots of fun. I had a play around with it earlier, and I intend to use this for a video at some point, but I couldn't kind of go without mentioning it. Especially the fluids section on it. I mean, you can get your finger on the screen. You can do. It looks like kind of when you pour milk into water. It's just insane what you can do with it. But watch your space for that on one of my videos. When I actually do a track that will suit that, I will definitely be doing a video with that.
You'll notice my version
at some point
has the little download symbol happening. I know, right? I don't have it on my iPad, but I do have it because I'm on the beta. And I'll tell you what, some of the things that are coming out for it on the beta are super, super cool. I can't wait for him to drop them publicly because he's constantly working on it, and it's just going to get better and better and better. It's a really cool app. Very, very cool stuff. Where are we now? What time is it? It is 9:30, so we're at the hour and a half mark. And what was I going? There's something else I was going to ask you. We were talking before at the start of the show about Jordan Rudess, and we're both Dream Theater fans. And we were talking about how, I was only emailing him yesterday and chatting with him, and you've met him also and had a photo taken with him. It's so bizarre how, I don't know, we were both fans of him, and now I've sat there and get to speak to him via email, and you've met him and had photos. The world really has opened up but closed in to have these experiences. I remember when I had him on the show, it was such a big thing for me. I was just like, oh my God, I've got Jordan Rudess on the show. Oh my God. And you said you went back and watched that interview. I don't know if it came across, but I was like,
Yeah.
and when he grabbed that iPad and started just noodling around on the iPad, I was just like, get the fuck out of here, man. Jordan's like noodling on an iPad on my show. It's, how much, and you're wearing your Dream Theater shirt today, how much has Dream Theater been an influence on you, would you say?
Oh, I would say I barely even put it to words. I haven't shown this yet, but...
Oh, man, you've even got a tattoo on your arm.
I don't
Holy
even see
hell.
it. Hang on. It's really difficult to see it, but I had that done quite a few years ago. Dream Theater were a massive, massive influence. I have to say, since Mike Portnoy left, being a drummer, I haven't kind of enjoyed the music quite as much as I did prior. Mike Mangini is an amazing, technically an amazing drummer, but something about Mike Portnoy's playing, he was just an amazing composer, as it were. The drum parts he wrote just complemented the music so well. So for me, when Black Clouds and Silver Linings ended with the Count of Tuscany, that was when Dream Theater kind of 1.0 ended. And there's still an amazing band, and the album they just brought out is still incredible, but they were magic for me up until that point.
Pretty sure they got nominated for an award for their new album. I don't know if it's the Grammys. Did they get coming up next year, or they got nominated for something for this new album? I saw it on Facebook, so it must be true. If it's on Facebook.
Oh, absolutely.
So now that the album's done and you've had time to breathe, and it's not been a lot of time because you've only really just dropped it, have you started thinking towards what's next, what the next album's going to be, what concepts, and when you're going to start it?
Yeah, funny you should ask, actually, because when I finished From Boy to Man, I said to my wife, right, I think I'm at that point with Garageband at iOS where I really want to get a Mac, and I really want to go to Logic because I kind of feel like I'm a little bit limited with what I've got. That was kind of the plan. And almost immediately after I finished From Boy to Man, I've started working on the next album. I didn't kind of intend to. I thought, I'm going to have a break from music for a little while because things are busy at work, etc. But the next album is kind of in the pipeline. I've even kind of worked on the first track. So the next album, I'm going to call The Human Endeavor, and to be about the human race and the kind of good and bad things that we've done to ourselves and to the planet. The first track I'm working on is I don't know why it's ended up this way, but it's kind of about the Apollo 11 moon landings. So that's kind of almost part of the vocals almost done. But I'd imagine it's probably going to be quite a few months before the whole thing is finished, but that's where I'm going at the moment.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to that. Why am I getting a notification? Go away, notifications. So I'm going to go out today and play one of your older songs because I like to do things a little bit different, and I'm going to play Arrival because it's at the end of the show.
Oh, wow.
And I like doing things that are alternate, you know what I'm saying? So I'll hit you up with the famous last question that I hit everyone with. I'm just going to keep it short this time. When's it a good time to start making music?
Right now. Yeah, I would say if you've looking at me at the beginning of lockdown, I've been playing playing drums in bands for years, and that was basically it. But I had all this kind of music in my head that I wanted to get out, and just go on. Garageband is on your phone, on your iPad. Go on, watch Pete's tutorials, tutorials that you can find. It doesn't take long to work out how to use it. Just get creating, obviously, providing you want to. But for me, it's been such therapy through this whole thing. Not just because of lockdowns, because of things in general in life. But I never would have believed that however many months after I started, I've got an album out, I've got an EP out, and for me, I drive my wife mad for this, but music from day to day is just my life. Don't make music if you're not going to enjoy it, obviously, but just get if you want to make music, just get on and start doing it.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Do what Nike says and just do it. And I'm just grabbing a link here. Let me do this before I go. I'm trying to multitask. I'm not good at it. I should be. I've taken enough hormones. See if I can paste this. There is in the chat. I'm just going to put that in there. And hopefully it works. Hopefully I'm able to do it. There is the link to Al's album, Night Train 1988, From Boy to Man. That is the album on Songwhip, so you can go and get that on iTunes, Spotify, all the favorite things. Go do it. Go give him a listen. Go listen to the whole album. Play it through a few times, because I'll be doing it. What I do at the end of each show, whoever comes on, I normally leave the album spinning for 48 hours. So when you check your DistroKid account, there'll be 43 cents waiting for you. Because we make so much money these days from our music. What I want to do now is thank you so much for coming on the show and giving me your time and telling us a little bit more about you. But before I go, I want to touch on one more thing, and I almost forgot about this. Let's cover this before we go, because it is important. So, and and it's going to be, we're going to laugh about this. So when I asked you to come on the show, and anyone who's come on the show, they normally know I'll send you an email saying, right, send me a photo, send me some links to your music, and I want to, because I want to know who you are. Let's find out who you are. Now, when you sent me your stuff, you were lucky because you didn't really have any online presence, yeah? So there was no blurb or anything I could get the information from. So this is another, and the reason I'm bringing this up is for people to really drill in their heads how important it is to have a short blurb, right? Because Al was lucky. Al had a concept album which told me all about his life. So all I had to do was just go listen to the fucking album, and it was easy for me to write a blurb, right? But not all of you have fucking concept albums about your lives. So make sure, go back. There's even a video I've done on this with Andy Goldsby where I talk about writing a blurb, writing a bio about yourself. It doesn't take long. It only needs to be 3 sentences. Keep it short, keep it sweet and simple. And it makes people just want to find out. They just know a little bit more about you. It makes my job easier if I have you on the show, because not all of you are going to be like Al. I'm starting to sound like the dude from what's that channel where he yells all the time? What are you doing, man? Oh, I can't even think of his fucking channel. But yeah, listen to Russ. No blurb required. No, a blurb is required, because no, listen, Russ is in the chat. Do your job. Listen, Russ. All right, I'll slap you around the head. No, but it is important, and you were lucky that you have such an in-depth story. I was able to go through your album and just go, oh my God, cool. So you played drums here, you picked up your first keyboard here, life kind of got in, you met your partner, life gets in the way. It was so easy for me to write. Glenn Fricker, thanks for that. So yeah, it was so easy for me to write a blurb. But just for everybody else, spend some time. Thank you, Cy Effin, for putting it out there. And I just wanted to set a reminder to people, write a fucking blurb. Just do it. Do it today. Do it. Take you 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be perfect, Don't sweat it, because you can change it as you go along. What are you going to do next about writing a blurb now?
Yeah, I bet you. I guess I better get on and write a blurb.
So you have all the material, or just put C album above for blurb. That'll work as well.
Yeah. Hashtag.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so I want to thank you first for coming on the show. Thank you for giving me your time today and writing such fantastic music. Thank you for sharing your story and your music and really making something hard-hitting and really connected with me, and I know it connected with other people. I do implore you to go and listen to the album. Links are in the description. Go up and sign up. Sub him up, folks. Sub him up. So as Hippie would say, go over and sub up Night Train because he deserves far more subs than what he has. I want to thank everybody for being in the chat. Thank you, as always, for supporting the channel and being here and supporting Al today. Was there any parting words you would like to say to our wonderful people here and the people out in internet land?
Other than it's a real honor to have joined this community, to have found Pete's and yours and Tom's channels. It really has, I know people say this, but it really has changed my life. And Jade, thanks ever so much for inviting me on. I couldn't believe it when you asked me. I really couldn't. That it's such an honor that you wanted to speak to me and find out my story. And like I said to you earlier on before the folks were here, it's so strange just to be talking to you actually in person, because normally you're a face on the screen and you almost think, are these people real? I don't know. But it's such an honor. I caught your show the other day. I won't go into it too much, but the show you put out the other day on your Day of Remembrance was absolutely amazing. I haven't had such an emotional hour or so in my life. So thank you ever so much for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much. Thanks for that's really nice of you to say. Thank you for everybody who said such nice comments. Hippie played it on his show. I couldn't even watch it back. It destroyed me. It's, you know, and I think with yourself, when you write stuff that is really personal and really from the heart, it's hard to go back and deal with it again. Because it is a cleansing. Yeah. Music's so much more than just notes on a keyboard or beats on a drum kit or it's, you're let's be honest, you're splitting your heart open and you're pouring out all the stuff that you can't talk about to most people. And if you can't deal with it, I feel so bad for people who have to listen to my music because I'm just emotionally vomiting on them every time I sing. So, but thank you so much for that.
No.
And it's been a pleasure to get to meet you as well. And the reason I wanted you on the show, just so you know, is because your music, your album connected with me so much. It really connected with me and I just had to have you on the show. So it was your music that just blew me away. So thank you so much for that. We're going to go out today with Arrival. So this is on the debut EP from Night Train 1988. And again, the link I put in there and the link that's in the description, you can go there and listen to all this music. Folks, tomorrow I am doing a show on Black Friday app. So if you want to join me, it'll be an hour before YML. I normally don't do a show on the weekend, but it's Black Friday. I want to run through a whole bunch of specials that you may have missed and help you spend some money or help you not spend some money. Because it's your money at the end of the day, and what my opinion's just like the shit that comes out of my asshole. You can take it or leave it. What a way to end. All right. Guys, thank Al for coming on the show. This is Arrival, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thanks very much for being here. You all rock, and bye-bye for now. Hooroo. Bye. Pete Johns is up next, folks, with a bit of a Black Friday thing. And a little bit later on after that, join me and Pete over on Creative Source, as we'll be special guests on Mike Enjo's Featured Artists Live. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. You all rock. See you soon. Bye.